Perfect. I like that.
If we were to pick someone to eat in this party, it'd probably be Big Matt.
Honestly, I feel like I would be a decent, tasty bite. I mean, I got some marbling on me.
I don't think you'd taste good. I just think there's a lot of you. Well, we got special presents here.
Yeah, so I, in honor of today's episode, I got you guys some presents.
The rainbow bag.
Honestly, I got
Christmas lights, bitch.
It's just a rainbow.
It's Christmas in July.
What the fuck is this? So this is a good opportunity here. Big Matt is my friend for a long time here. We've been friends since college. Met in college. Co-best man at my wedding.
Yep.
I was best man at your wedding.
Yep.
We love each other.
Yep.
And he's sick as fuck in the head. And he's also a huge history guy.
I would like to think of myself as eccentric, not sick.
Man witch.
You're sick in the head. I know you.
Okay, fine.
Just add meat.
No, so
I'll add some meat.
Is we talked about this. I've been trying to get you on the show.
Yep.
And of course, the one story that Big Matt wanted to do was the one with people eating people.
Because why not?
Because that just makes sense.
You know what the interesting part of this is? This whole story as we go through it. This is actually in California. This is law. This has to be taught in schools. This story of the Donner Party has to be taught in schools.
Take shortcuts. Like let's
yeah,
break that whole thing down. Right.
Yep.
We're talking about the Donner Party today. The Donner Party is the story of an Oregon Trail type situation.
Yep.
Where people
man witch
made all sorts of mistakes and all sorts of bad things happened in a row for a culmination of things, and then people getting stranded in the Sierra Nevadas and had to eat each other to survive.
Yeah.
And Big Matt loves it.
I just find it's
Big Matt is full support.
It's human existence. I mean, it's human perseverance to survive. Humans will do anything to survive.
Yeah, I'd rather watch a sports game than talk about people eating.
I mean, this is like sports. Whoever can last the longest, keep the other people fit.
So did you guys know about Hufu?
I did not.
No, I never knew about Hufu.
So Hufu is a tofu that's made to taste like human flesh.
I want to know who designed that, and it was like, yep, that's good enough. Like,
you know what? It was brilliant. It sold.
Sounds like
he sold out in 2 weeks.
Sounds like one of those, West Coast techno.
They'd be like, get the fuck out.
There must be a really small
Mark Cuban would try it.
Section of people that like are actually like maybe fantasy. I'm sure it struck a chord with them. So in 2005 is when they started doing this, and it was marketed towards cannibals who wanted to quit.
I mean,
that's a very interesting demographic. I would say
it is.
The jewel.
It's very interesting, but at the same time, like you got to give them props. They're trying to quit.
It's like the electronics. It's like the e-cig of eating people.
It's like Nicorette, man.
Yes,
nicking gum.
Yeah, instead of eating the.
Are you tired of getting human flesh stuck between your teeth?
So people started doing reviews though. They were like, "It's just tofu." Like, it literally
is that just what tofu tastes like? Is human flesh?
I couldn't tell you. I've never had tofu.
You've had tofu.
No,
I like how you say
you've had Chinese. I mean, tofu's included in Chinese quite like just straight raw tofu. No, I've never had.
I think it's funny that he says I've never had tofu. I've never had human flesh.
I would rather eat Hufu than tofu.
Would you like to confess anything?
You are safe because there's only one state in the country that outlawed cannibalism.
Is that right?
Yeah,
which
Idaho. Fucking say it now. Mormons are getting too crazy.
There might be. It's one of those things like you don't have to make a law. People aren't gonna eat people for fun.
That
normally, I don't know.
I'll be honest with you. As a teacher, there are rules where you're like, "Why the hell is that a rule?" And then you think to yourself,
"That's
because somebody did it."
Everything's fucked up.
Because
going right from that.
Yeah.
It takes a perfect storm to get to the Donner Party, right?
Yeah, it's
like everything that could go wrong went fucking wrong.
Well, and it's bad decisions. I mean,
yeah.
The issue is like
it's what happens when you put someone in charge that should not be in charge.
Do you have an experience going out west in a wagon?
No.
Do you have an experience going out west?
I play the Oregon Trail.
You play the Oregon Trail. Literally, these people didn't. They had no clue what they were doing. They just literally packed up their homes and they just left. I mean, you have no experience.
Well, I packed a lot of food when I did Oregon Trail, and I ended up dying of tuberculosis.
I usually died of diarrhea.
I usually died in a river.
Dude, those river crossings were tough, man.
I'm just like, fuck it, we could go, and then I'm like,
did you take a raft or did you try to ford the river?
I always try to just go right through.
Oh yeah.
That sounds like you fuck it.
Screw it, we're going.
Well, like you get through
Full send.
you get through like a river, and then you're like getting cocky. You're like, I can handle this, and then it's like you lost everybody except you. Now you have to walk. It's like, oh.
But in general, right? It is definitely poor decisions. I agree, but it's more than that too, right? You have poor decisions.
Yep.
You have a
semi-high level
bad medical practice of the time.
Oh God.
Right.
Listen to our Wild West medicine, you'll understand.
Oh yeah, you guys did cover that.
Fuck me. We're gonna talk about the Donner Party.
Yep.
We're all lifelong friends, and we're all history guys, right? Even especially Big Matt.
Yep.
I'm Jake.
I'm Big Matt.
I'm Nate.
And this is the Historical Boners Podcast.
Yeah, we do.
All right. We're here today to talk about the Donner Party. People eating people.
Also known as the dinner party.
So it's funny. I made a Spotify playlist of all podcasts I listened to for this show.
And call it the dinner
And
party.
I typed in Donner Party, and it changed it to Dinner Party. I thought that was kind of funny. But anyways, what we're going to do a brief thing on characters. We're going to talk about George Donner and James Reed, two of the probably bigger characters.
Yep.
We're not going to go through everyone, but then we'll go through it's kind of a story what this is, so we're not going to do a ton of breakups, but we're going to go wet behind the ears as the intro segment. We'll talk about the key decision that was made in the Donner Party travels, and then we'll do a little trivia. I have a couple questions for trivia. Should be fun. And then we'll end it with straight up just not having a good time. where things start to go a little sour.
What's the worst that could happen?
Just straight up not having
It's
a good
funny.
time.
Yeah, there's even more to that too. This is going to be a two-parter episode. The next episode will be dropping in a couple more episodes, but there's so much to cover here, and Big Matt is like vibrating with excitement to go through it all.
I'm getting a little sweaty too.
He made all the notes. He's already sweaty. He makes all the notes. There's like 18 pages of notes here. We're gonna get through it all. We're super excited.
I had a blast. I treated it like a little project. I had a really fun time.
I'm talking a lot.
All right, we'll start with James Reed. So James Reed was born in 1800 in Ireland. I was reading that. I was like, hey, I wonder if he had a cool accent. Probably not. Moved here when he was young.
The luck of the Irish.
But he actually, surprisingly, lived till 18. But what's really cool is, and I mean, cool, but he actually lived in...
And that's, back then, I mean, it was a huge mining town. I'm pretty sure, like, when lead was discovered there, the population was, like, bigger than Chicago at one point.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
it was
kind
massive.
of like a...
We're trying to go big time.
Yes. So, with it being a big mining town, there comes a lot of people, and Galena is not a big area. And obviously, you're going to not like everybody because that's impossible.
This is America.
This is America. We hate everybody. But they would have things called stone duels there, which I don't
it's knocked unconscious.
But yeah, it's basically you're standing there instead of, a regular duel with guns, you have a pile of rocks and you're chucking rocks at each other.
We used to play nutball.
Oh my
Where
God.
you sit in a circle with all your guy friends and you spread your legs and you throw.
It's like Jackass when they're throwing
they
were throwing the dog bone.
Yep.
We used a racquetball.
Oh.
It's a weird age.
Why
Like,
did we do
junior
that?
high school thing is weird.
We
It's
did a
weird
lot of
age.
stupid shit.
Middle school is
weird.
just weird.
The sad thing is that it was more high school. Like our fight nights and
Yeah, that was fun.
We
you
did a lot of
guys
stupid
matured a little later.
shit. A little.
Yeah,
bit.
we're mature.
Well, I mean, we grew up in small town.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot to do. Okay.
We had fun.
Yeah, exactly. You had to have
We
fun
slept in the
somehow.
same bed a lot.
You're not going to bring that up every episode. But yes, we did. Unlike James Reed sleeping with his friends. What's really cool is he actually fought in the Black Hawk War along Abe Lincoln. And what's really cool for me and Fly is that Stillman Valley was involved in the Black Hawk Wars.
That's right.
Yeah, except for it's the Battle of Stillman's Run. It's pretty good. He married his wife, Margaret. So
I'm sure she was very attractive.
I don't know. I didn't see a picture of her.
Have you seen her elbow?
Oh damn!
Back then, it
You
was
even
like
got a
an
little
ankle.
bit of a an
How
ankle.
do you-
Like, whoa.
How do you think she got married? But she was a widow and had a kid already, a daughter. But then they ended up. He never actually officially adopted her, but she still took the name Reed.
Oh, nice.
I think they ended up having 4 kids together, was what I read. During the 1840s, James Reed actually struggled quite a bit. He was a business owner and all this, and Lincoln actually provided him with assistance.
I think what a lot of people don't know is that at around the time of the Donner Party, the economics in America was not going well.
No. Well, I mean, it was just the huge expansion westward. Like, I mean, to an extent, one person in the town basically was making money, whoever owned the general store. Other than that, it's anecdote.
All right.
So actually, when they decided to move westward, Reed tried to convince Lincoln to go with.
Over this entire story, as we read it and as I read the book, I kept coming back to
What if that happened?
What if that had happened? I mean, our history as a country, as we would know it, would have been fundamentally altered. Lincoln would not have. Who knows if he would have survived?
I'll say this. I think if Abe Lincoln went on this trip and was a part of this group, they wouldn't have fucked up as much as they did. I think Abe Lincoln would have set shit straight.
I mean, he was at that point. He was starting to become a very influential person, especially in Illinois politics. So that could very well have been true.
I think Abe Lincoln's got to be an episode because I think very highly of. How do you not think highly of Abe Lincoln?
So you want to make fun of Abe Lincoln?
Bam! Got him.
Jesus, too soon.
All right, the other guy we're going to talk about is, George Donner. He was born sometime in 1780, and he was a German dude.
Why are you yelling?
Askenschlugen. He's a clean-shaven, good-looking guy. Sounds like a Nazi to me.
Sounds like a Nazi if I've ever heard of one.
His father was a Revolutionary War veteran, so he came from very much prestige. He moved to Illinois in 1828, and he was a farmer, among other things. I don't know. His first wife died, and then he remarried in 1829, and then that wife died 6 years later. Classic.
Is he just killing off his wives?
Maybe.
Dude, childbirth back then was like
that too.
That was brutal.
Like, you give me a son. Oh shit, she died.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough.
Yeah. Guys burning through wives like I go through pizza.
Every 6 years. That's me.
So in 1837, after his second wife died, he moved to Texas, but then came back 2 years later and married his wife, Tamzine Dozier.
I don't like that name.
So you should. So Tamzine's
German.
She's a pretty cool character in the whole story. She's kind of a badass. She was a teacher. She was going out to California with her husband to open up a school to teach young girls. So like and throughout the story you'll see like she's a pretty hardy, steadfast woman.
Seems
that
to have
is one of the
common
good characters.
sense.
One of the few, right? She was tough as nails. Is really one of. Maybe I should have done the segment on her instead of George, because there's not a whole lot written about George. They say he was like an adventurous type guy, but other than that, he was one of the older guys, a little more experienced. So he was chosen to lead a lot of advertising the shot glass.
Yeah,
but that's all I got on George, right?
That's all I got.
That's all I got.
So
let's move into the first part. Let's go to the story.
Yeah,
right?
The Reeds and the Donners. Basically, they were kind of in the same realm in Illinois, and they got to know each other through business deals and such. And they decided, let's move out to California. That was getting to be this. So this is actually before the gold rush. So they were actually pre-49. Right? If you think about it, wasn't a lot of people coming to California. It was the gold rush. They actually were before that. They went early. A lot of it was, we talked about Reed was kind of down on his luck. California was, hey, I can go out there. I can get a fresh start. Yeah, you get a fresh start. And I think a lot of people saw it as a land of new opportunity.
That's the thing with out west is they made all of it seem like a brand new opportunity.
Yes.
Well, and especially when there's hardship going on, everyone was kind of like, maybe we should.
Well, that's the thing is a lot of people were farmers.
Correct.
And so what I think is really funny is the whole westward expansion is they made Oklahoma like, oh my God, it's the best farmland. It might have been, But then when everyone moves there and over farms, and then something crazy happens, like, you know, the Dust Bowl. I mean, it's just something funny to me about moving west. They just glorified it so much. But at the same time, I bet back then I would have fell for it like a sucker, and I would have been doing it too.
I mean, it sounds like fun too. Like, let's pick up and start over.
Yeah.
It sounds cool.
Well, and at this time too, I mean, you had Manifest Destiny.
Yeah.
That was basically where.
Gotta love that.
It was the white person's version of, well, I can take anything I want from anybody, and this is mine for the taking. That's what it was.
That's a big thing back then. Race was a huge part, right?
Correct.
Right. Native Americans were being suppressed.
They were treated almost along the line of vermin, where they were
not
just
as humans.
not as humans at all. And it was, they can just take whatever you want and we're going to push you out.
Right.
Not even treated like second-class citizens. I mean, they were very, very, looked very down upon.
And they're in this story too.
Yes. And the crazy part is, we'll get to it, is they're actually the ones who kind of saved some of them.
Yeah.
And so it's...
And I would say their morals were better in some ways too.
Oh yeah,
in some ways.
Like you
Some
look
ways.
at all the settlers and what they did to the land. Like the Native Americans took care of the land and everything, and when the white man came through, they almost, like, buffalo were almost extinct because of them. They would literally just go through, kill them all, cape them out for their hides, and then leave everything behind.
The buffaloes.
The big thing with the buffalo is, they used to just have train rides where you just go shoot them.
Yeah. So this is the important part of the story. Though Reed and Donner are looking to go west, and obviously they don't have any experience with that, as none of us probably would have. And so they relied on a book by a guy called Lansford Hastings when they planned their expedition west. The thing about Lansford Hastings was, I didn't know what he was writing about. He literally would just he made most of these things up.
He's basically a con man.
Essentially a con man, just looking to make a quick buck. And the bad part was, Reed and Donner treated this book like it was the Holy Bible.
Yep.
And so they relied heavily upon it. And really, this was where that was their first big mistake, was relying upon this.
There's no Yelp review back then to know that the gospel is shit.
This guy sucks.
Hastings was a snake oil guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, that
basically, oh yeah, sure, this works, I did it.
Well, and it's crazy, like back then, the amount that people just took somebody's word for face
especially
value.
for books.
Yeah.
Like if it was in a book, they're like,
well, and here's the thing too, like, if it's in a book, so obviously you have money to publish a book, you must be telling the truth.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
you wouldn't waste money to lie.
Any whack job could write their own book, right? You can publish your own book, but back in the day,
you can start a podcast.
Exactly. I think we should write a book. Amazon published that shit ourselves. Let's write a book. Fly.
Yeah.
The moon landing never happened.
So,
but it's gonna have nothing to do with the moon landing. It's gonna be a love story
between me and Nate.
Dude, let's write that book. Then we can act it out.
I want you every day, from now on, forever and ever.
Just like the moon landing didn't happen.
So
it didn't. It didn't.
I think it did.
They left
up there.
They left Springfield, Illinois on April 14th, 1846. So any of the dates I talk about are either going to be 1846 or 1847. Okay, so we won't do the year anymore. We're just going to do the months and the day. And so they left Springfield, Illinois, and it took them 2 days to get out of town.
So what does that mean?
It's a big town.
I think it literally, they were figuring out probably how to keep moving and get going. I mean, they'd never done this before.
Exactly. They had no experience, so they probably like loaded up. They're like, all right, let's go.
I mean, they're probably
like, did you pack the pots and pans? Ah, fuck.
They got to be loaded to bear.
Was it like a Midwestern thing where like you were saying goodbye?
It was a Midwestern goodbye.
Well,
watch for deer.
Well anyway, so I'll see you later.
Do you want another beer before you go? Oh, no, I could. Oh, okay.
Oh, forgot it.
Oh, and then you're the next thing you're there for 2 days. I thought that's what happened.
It was worse back then.
So
it's like 2 a.m. You're like, oh yeah, well, you know what she said.
You know the walleye out's there.
Well, you know George died 2 years back now.
Choked on a pancake.
Cheese curd.
Cheese curd. Now we're in Illinois, not Wisconsin.
Oh, I guess so. Bratwurst.
Pancakes.
We're in Illinois, not Wisconsin.
Dude, yeah.
Sorry, he choked on an Italian beef.
I think we just steal everything from Wisconsin.
What do you choke on? Corruption.
Another interesting fact time.
Uh-oh.
A little preview here. James Reed's horse was named Glaucus. Glaucus happened to be the tale of a Greek man named Glaucus, who
Are you sure?
Fascinating.
who fed his horses human flesh. It's a foreshadow. Yeah,
I really hope that was
irony is what you might want to call it.
I hope that was a battle horse and he's just out there fucking taking chunks out of people. Like, I need more. Maybe that's why horses now.
Come on. So they left Springfield on April 14th. They arrive in Independence, Missouri on May 10th. So takes about a month. They're moving across Missouri. Independence, Missouri, that's where basically if you were going to go out west, that was your gateway.
Yep.
That was the final destination before you were
That's where
hitting...
you stock up.
Yeah, like after that, it's all Native American country. There was forts after that, but other than that, that's about it.
Isn't Independence where you leave from in the Oregon Trail?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is exactly where you leave from. So,
I thought I read somewhere that you don't want to leave after May 1st.
yeah,
Because then you'll end up,
From
depending on where
Independence.
you're going.
Correct.
Yeah. If you're going to Oregon or California, you're going to
you have to
winter
make it
in
over
the
the
mountains.
Sierras. Yeah, I mean, around here, winter hits in November, December.
Something
And
like
honestly,
that.
what would really suck is the Great Plains are horrible in the wintertime still.
Oh, it's awful.
Because there's nothing blocking that wind and it's just
Oh,
cold.
and they're god awful hot in
And-
the summer too.
Yeah, I know. That was the worst thing about being in Kansas was there was like no snow, but it was just cold and just windy. And it's like, God.
I know. And
That and you're in Kansas.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Illinois is so much better.
Nebraska's flatter.
Nebraska was so much worse. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's bad.
Going side note, going to track meets in the wintertime, or all of our indoor meets were like Alling, Nebraska.
Mhm.
Those were the worst because we took like nice charter buses everywhere.
Yeah.
We're like, "Ooh, this is fancy," and then it's like 5 hours of just flat white, and you're like, "I'm gonna jump off this fucking boat, fat lord."
Another thing too was you had to leave in mid-May and early in May when the grass was long enough for cattle. I mean, because you got to think about it too. Grass really doesn't start getting long, especially here and out in the plains, till May, right? I mean, because the snow finally burns off in April, it gets warm enough. Cattle got to eat. You're not hauling hay with you. The cattle are going to eat what they have,
They're
and
just
it's
gonna
grass.
graze along the way.
Correct. Basically,
Simpler times,
It'd be so much
Just
easier
eat
to follow
the-
Cherokee.
Sorry.
so it was here. The Reeds and the Donners actually joined up with a larger wagon group. So typically when people would go out west, you're going to be in wagon parties of about 100 people. I mean, it's going to be a lot of wagons, right? Think about it. It's safety in numbers. You're going to be traveling with those around you. And it's a long wagon. I mean, that's what they called them, wagon trains, because it was very long wagons stacked along
Basically,
a
you
road.
just kind of help out each other get the fuck out there, avoid the
That's
Indians.
the idea. That's
Yeah.
the idea, at least.
Native Americans would see the long train and be like, "Yeah, we probably shouldn't."
Yep.
They see a single one, they're like, "That's fucking ours, right?" But
So as they start to leave, it's spring. Spring, as we all know, rains a lot, and their first few days of travel are slow. I mean, they're only going 4 miles an hour. Typically, when you're on a wagon train out through the plains, you're doing 8 to 12 miles an hour, and they did like 4 for the first few days. So you can already kind of
that's like
see.
a brisk walk.
Yeah, I mean, crying out loud, when I go on a walk, it's on the treadmill. It's at 4 miles an hour.
Wow.
That's because you got abnormally large legs.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
you're 4 miles
I'm
an
half
hour.
as fast as
Jacob's
that.
like 2 on a good day.
Your
I'm
4
little.
is his 8.
I'm little.
But yeah, I mean, that's slow. I mean, if at that pace in 100 days, you're only gonna be going 400 miles. That's slow.
And that is not enough to get to California.
No.
It's enough to eat people.
It works
Just
up
you wait.
a hell of a hunger.
We're getting there.
So when they join the large wagon train, basically the way the wagon train works, you're called whatever party of the leader. Okay, so like let's say Jacob would be the leader of the wagon train. It
We're
would be
getting
the
lost.
Flygar train. He's in the Flygar party. Okay,
Remember,
were
I
at-
just packed food in the Oregon Trail game, so
So whoever's the leader, it's your last name. That's your party. Okay, you're responsible for your party. So at this point, it's called the Russell Party because there's what their leader, William Russell. There's 160 people in the party, 40 wagons, and 300 cattle.
That's a lot of fucking cattle.
Yeah.
But you got to eat.
The crazy part is, like, how do you keep that many cattle? Like, how do you keep track of that many cattle and, like, keep them contained?
Everyone's got like 4 of them, right? You keep control of your own.
Well, that's the sad thing. Even if you had 4 per wagon, there's only 40 wagons. Around 40 wagons. So that'd be 160 cattle.
I mean,
there's still 140 cattle just wandering.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Yeah,
maybe you just tie them on a string behind you, right?
I mean, they probably did have some kind of rope system.
Yeah, I mean,
or just like 2 people in the back, like, all right.
I mean, cattle are very herd-oriented creatures. Like, so when we go out, when my dad and I go out and like cut wood out in the pasture, they'll come up and they'll hang around us and like they'll follow sometimes.
Like,
so,
I don't know.
First death, mind you.
Oh boy,
Yay! We did
many more to come. So the first death is actually James Reed's mother-in-law from tuberculosis. It
was not tuberculosis. I can
James
guarantee that, especially with how big of a dick James Reed was.
The kicker was she was like on her deathbed when the wagons left. Like they all knew she was gonna croak, but she still went.
And like at that point, like, you don't need the body. It's like, why bring her along?
Although, what are you gonna do with her though? You stay here and just
leave her with the neighbors. Like, hey, can you swing by? Like, give her some water 3 times a day. Like,
this isn't a cat on vacation.
She's gonna die.
she's gonna die.
Like, it's probably you gotta pay them then, right? It's probably cheaper to just bring her. Well, you're never gonna last.
But you're never going back. Like that's the kicker we don't realize nowadays is these people. They were never going to see these people again in their life.
Nah.
You left,
dude. I'd be such.
You
a
would
dick
never
to my
leave.
Neighbors. Be like, hey, you know what? Like, your wife's cheating on you. And it's not happening. But
remember that
really piss them off.
Just for fun.
Just for fun. And then dip out of town that next day and be like, I wonder what ever happened.
Just a home wrecker.
You hear about like a double like a murder suicide.
Destroy everybody's lives and then dip town. But get out to California and they're like, holy shit, the whole town of Rockford burned to the ground. I guess like so.
That bitch.
Yeah, you were never gonna see anybody.
Yeah, it's true. It's not like going to Florida. Yeah,
you couldn't make that trip, a couple times a year to go visit family.
You were done. The only one that would, these were like really crazy was the Mountain Men. How much those guys actually would move back and forth. Like they actually covered a lot of ground.
That's a different breed of person.
Yeah. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah. So
they were the raccoon cap wearing motherfuckers.
June 3rd is the first muncheon of a gentleman.
The first muncheon.
Muncheon.
We all make fun of our, what do you call it? Enunciations.
Yeah. Louis Kesselberg. So he's going to be somebody we're going to talk about a lot
Jewish.
more. German.
It's better not to make those jokes, right?
First part of June, the party going hard. They're actually making 20 miles a day. That's a lot. I mean, think about it. That's a huge wagon you're hauling with cattle, 20 miles a day.
That's good time.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
And they reach the Platte River, which is a major highway to the west. Which, looking at the maps that they went, I've actually driven I-80. I-80 pretty much that was it. That was their route. They followed the Platte. I-80 actually is the route kind of the Donners took. I think because it was already an established highway, they put a road on it.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. There's roads in Europe that are from the Roman time. And
are you saying that you're an Oregon Trail goer?
Yes.
I've actually gone that way. Yes. Marissa and I, before we had the kids, we went out on a road trip. We went I-80 out by Ogallala, and then we cut off and went down into Colorado and stuff. But yeah,
did you eat
all
people?
the way across?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, 80 will go out. 80 takes you all the way to the Pacific.
Boston.
Yep. So life's pretty hard on the trail, right? Breaks happen, cuts happen, injuries happen, and disease happens. So one of the things that was talked about was, you get an injury, you have to keep cleaning and dressing those wounds, or you're going to have like gangrene maggots, things of that nature. And it actually talked about one of the kids got an injury. They cleaned it, they dressed it, and then a week later, he said, I can feel like my skin is like wiggling. And so they take, it's on his leg, and they take the dressing off, and there's just maggots crawling all over. I mean, it's any little cut, nick, or thing, like any injury, it can become a life-threatening injury. Yeah. I mean, there's no modern medicine.
We take Neosporin and Band-Aids for granted nowadays.
Yeah, I mean,
they did not have that back then.
No.
But also, maggots is one of the worst. Like, decaying flesh and maggots is horrible.
Like,
isn't that good for your decaying flesh, maggots, though?
No. You're thinking leeches.
Yeah, leeches help. So, like, medicinal leeches, they help promote.
They used to use maggots to pack wounds and stuff.
Yes.
But it's not good.
No, leeches help, like, keep a wound clean by the blood flowing. Yeah. It keeps the blood moving along.
It helps your blood.
Because they have anticoagulant.
Yeah, people with, like, weird blood diseases, they'll use leeches to keep shit going.
They actually have sterile leeches in hospitals that they will use.
If you ever want to see a weird moment, watch.
Yeah, there are such things as sterile leeches. Yes.
Watch Speed 2. William Dafoe has some weird thing, and he puts leeches all over his body.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm taking my medical advice from Speed 2, but
dude, that's a great fucking movie. But yeah,
is that Keanu Reeves? Right?
No, he's in the first one.
He's on the second one.
No, they replaced him, but Sandra Bullock's still in it. But that's young Sandra Bullock. Hell yeah. That's a good movie. That's a good movie.
I'm a simple man.
I like young Sandra Bullock.
And breakfast food.
Breakfast food.
Brown-haired women.
Yeah. Brunettes and breakfast food. But, yeah, so the maggots, like, that smell is just horrible. Mm-hmm. So when my mom worked at the food pantry, someone kicked a freaking pork chop underneath the freezer. Oh. And no one knew. And so you're just like, eventually the smell got so bad, you're like, where in the fuck is this coming from? So one day me and my mom were just sitting there trying to find it. For some reason, I have a weird niche at finding. But no, we moved the freezer, and next thing there's just this upside down pork chop, like the styrofoam was upside down. We're like, all right. I flipped it, and it just like, it's just sitting there like the whole pork chop is just like moving,
wriggling,
and I'm just like smell. It takes a lot to make me want to puke. I have a weird high tolerance for stink,
except for spicy gummy bears.
That was different. By mid-June, they would be in west central Nebraska, finding meat abundant because of all the buffalo had food. It changed to the Boggs Party because the Russells resigned due to poor health. Because,
you're on the Oregon Trail, stuff happens.
You get
play the game, you learn real fast.
You shit yourself real bad.
That's called dysentery.
Yeah.
They entered into now what is Wyoming on June 26th. They stopped at Fort Bernard the next day, which was basically like the point of no return heading out west. If you're going to Oregon, California, whatever.
Gotta pull that trigger.
Yeah. It's like basically like either you turn back, go back, or just fuck it, send it.
Send it. I'm going to send it, guys. Don't be silly.
Imagine like back then they're like, do you think we should go? And then you just got some crazy dude. Fucking send it!
Confederate flag thing. That's for Tyler.
They didn't know what that
was. My
coworker
that wasn't a thing yet.
That wasn't a thing yet.
Okay.
Almost. I mean, 1860s.
I was going to say
not too far away.
20 years off, 15 years off.
15-ish?
Yeah, I was going to say 1846. Yeah, 15.
But in Fort Bernard, they ran into James Kliman, a seasoned mountain man who knew James Reed. Which I was like, what the fuck? Like, how the fuck does James Reed just know these people?
I was going to say, he sounds popular.
Well, remember what I said? These mountain men,
they traveled
they went, I mean, like we talked about, you'd never see somebody again. These guys were like zooming all over the country. They knew how to get across these passes. They knew how to get places really quickly. They traveled on a horse by themselves a lot of times. And so you can move pretty quickly on a horse.
And I say exactly, when you're not, carrying a whole caravan of people.
Correct.
You could move, and these guys knew how to do that.
You're not lugging dead grandma back there.
He passed grandma and was like, hey, Granny.
They left her on the side of the road.
I think they at least made her like a nice grave. Probably not. It's the in-laws. But
They probably ate her.
So it was here that
Dried her out for some jerky for later.
Maybe. Maybe.
Anyone want a manwich?
Just add the meat. That's what the can says. All right,
Okay.
so it was here is where they met the Lansford Hastings comes back into play. This is where he was supposed to meet them, because that was the whole thing. Is that he was gonna, you take the way he goes, and he was gonna be the guy to guide you, even though he never did it himself. But he actually ended up leaving with a bigger party.
Yeah, he left with a party before,
Yeah.
right? With a bigger party
Yeah.
that
They end up going to the thing known as the Hastings Cutoff, which in his words was going to save you 200 miles of a trip.
sure.
Because like you got to go the way I looked at it on the map was you almost have to like go up and around. It's almost like, like it's a right triangle. Well, it's the shortest it's shorter, right, than thinking the L. You cut across at the hypotenuse. And so he was like, well, gee, if you don't have to go all the way up and around here, let's just go straight across.
Yeah.
Right, so that's the key thing with it, I want to say, is it wasn't like he traveled it and was like, oh, this is way better. What he did was used maps from other people and looked at it and said, oh, you know what? There's a road here.
Yeah,
and then there's
He's
a
like,
road
"Oh,
here.
it's shorter going that. Yeah, if you just go straight, it's shorter.
It's
I'm sure that'll
faster.
be. Yeah.
But he's never actually done it before. But the thing with Hastings, right, he's trying to sell
Yeah.
his guidebook and his services, right,
Yep.
to guide people. He's a salesman.
Yeah. So Kliman actually warned Reed and the others, like, basically not to use the Hastings Cutoff, because Hastings was a scammer and it actually didn't even cross the Sierras himself.
Well, and Kliman was a mountain man.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. That would be the man I'd trust.
yeah, I don't understand why they
That-
would be like, oh, well, I'm going to trust this guy when the guy who literally makes a living on crossing the mountains, going through all this harsh terrain is telling you, don't do that.
Yeah.
It'd be like if your doctor told you, hey, you probably shouldn't do that, and you still did it. You're a dumbass.
And what bothers me the most is, like, Reed knew the guy.
Yeah.
Like, Reed knew Kliman and was like, maybe, I don't know. This guy wrote a book.
I mean, I also
essentially.
I also wonder too. I mean, we're at what, the end of June, roughly.
Yeah.
Like June, July, August. I mean, I got to figure in the Sierras. You're in the mountains. Probably the latest you want to get across is September, right? I don't know when it's probably starts snowing in October. I guarantee you.
Especially in higher.
So like
altitude,
if you're already behind.
I mean, there's parts of freaking Colorado that have snow like
Yeah.
all the time.
So like if you're already behind, you're like, oh shit, I don't know.
I think there's two things that I want to point out, right? We've talked about it a couple times on the show, but when you're in hardship, right? These people have been traveling for a pretty decent time at this point.
Yeah.
Life's not easy on the road, on the Oregon Trail. Like, you're probably not thinking
In the right state of mind.
right. You're not thinking great.
You want a relief, like
Well,
boom,
yeah,
give me something quick.
You struggled
What's
to
quick?
get that far, and then this guy's, basically saying you can save 200 miles by
Exactly.
taking this way, and you're like, God damn it, like hell yeah,
And if you're only traveling, the best days they were doing 20. That would be 10 days.
yeah.
The
Save
the
10
bad
days on your
it's
trip.
the bad days. That's 10 miles a day. That's 20. I mean, you could be looking at a month.
Like,
Yeah.
in general, when you're behind, like even at work, right? Sometimes you're willing to take a Hail Mary to get things back on track. I kind of feel like that's what they were doing, right? This is super risky.
Yeah.
And we probably shouldn't do it, but if we do it and it works out, well, it's going
gonna
to put us back on track. So it's like, well, you know what? Let's give it a
I mean,
shot.
it's just like my company; they're always working from behind.
I mean,
Trying
it's
to
like
take
that's
shortcuts.
every company. Just
like we can go through. I mean, hindsight is 20/20. We can go through now and be like, yeah, that was a fucked up decision. But at the time, I don't know. If I put myself in their shoes, that argument you guys are making,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit,
It's-
I've been
That's
out
the
here
big
for
thing,
so
is Reed
long
was
right
very
now.
persistent and insisted
Yeah,
that they took the Hastings.
Abe
cutoff.
Lincoln wouldn't have done it.
No.
I swear to God.
And guess what?
Honest Abe
Grandma would
would've
have
not
fucking
done
lived if Abe was there.
We wouldn't be talking about the Donner Party if Abe and Lincoln.
No,
was
it'd be
Do
the
you think-
fucking Lincoln
Do you
Party.
think a vampire killed Grandma?
Probably. All right, and so they ended up leaving on the 28th. So June 28th, they left Fort Bernard, They were behind. I read that so stupidly. On July 13th, the letter was shown to the Reed Donner Party from Lansford Hastings to all California-bound travelers that they should take his Cutoff trail to lessen the distance by 200 miles. Hastings promised to meet them at Fort Bridger and personally guide them through the new route, which he did not. Boggs and his new wagon separated from and stayed with the normal route. The Donner Party then was born. So they actually separated from the big caravan.
There was a split that happened.
Yeah.
Right. Some people were like, fuck no, this sounds stupid. You're going to end up eating people.
I'd laugh if
and the other people were
that.
like, but we like eating people.
Maybe that's what we want. And they're like, oh shit, all right, leave. It's like being stuck in a jail cell with Da Vinci. What are you in here for? Sodomy. You stay over there. It was. Tamzine Donner, which I do not like that name.
I love Tamzine, though.
I don't know why I don't like her name.
Don't talk shit about her.
It's just weird. Z should not be a name.
I think she's pretty badass character.
Oh, yeah.
She is. But George's wife
Tasty.
Was very pessimistic about taking Hastings Cutoff. Said that Hastings was a selfish adventurer. I mean, she
should have listened to his wife.
You
should have listened to her.
Just like every man, you should always listen to your wife. Brownie points.
No, I'm all right. I'm not kidding. She doesn't listen in a couple weeks. It's okay.
Nate.
Which, so Hastings was not at Fort Bridger, he instead, or which we already said, Bridger was gaining business from Hastings Cutoff, and encouraged Donner Reed to take it. So they were actually making money off of these people. And then there was a letter from Bryant warning the dangers of Hastings Cutoff that was actually withheld from them, basically saying that the route was not suited for wagons. Basically, if you were doing it by horse or foot, maybe.
You could probably wing it.
Yeah. But having a whole caravan, not going to work.
Well, and the kicker there was Bridger was. You guys seen the movie Cars, right?
Yeah.
Where
maybe
like the town is all out of business because the interstate basically went and passed by them. Fort Bridger was kind of the same way, and they were getting bypassed. So the Hastings Cutoff was actually giving them business. Okay. And so these guys at Fort Bridger they withheld the letter because they're like, oh, you should go this way and we'll get more business if you do that. And they should have had the letter. Would that have changed anything? I don't know. Reed was pretty damn adamant about taking the Hastings Cutoff.
What an idiot.
I know. He's just such a dick.
Yeah.
Dude, he had a lot of friends and he was still kind of a dick. It's kind of weird.
Which is because
and we'll get into that later too.
It gets worse.
It gets worse. Yes,
it gets worse with him.
Yeah.
Why?
We'll talk about it when we talk about it.
So next up is trivia.
Yeah, let's do trivia. I believe it's time for trivia. All right. So in the Donner Party, right, we all know what ends up happening. End up eating people, and only some people survive. But in general, men, women, or children, which group did the best?
Oh, you know?
Yeah.
Oh.
I figured Matt knew all these answers mostly.
Right. I'm gonna go with children.
You were correct.
You're correct. Yeah.
The bulk of the survivors were children, probably because people were helping take care of them in front of themselves.
The men fared worse than the women.
Yep.
The women fared worse than the children. It was a hierarchy.
It's like the men are obviously gonna try to save the women.
Yep.
Try to save the kids. The women obviously are gonna try saving.
It's the maternal instinct.
Yeah. I think the other thing I read too, and I don't know how true it is, but women's bodies have more fat on them.
Yes.
In relation to men's, so like they have more.
Especially it's after childbirth too. Like a child.
Do you know how Kliman got its name?
I actually know this, but I don't remember it.
Sounds like you don't know it, man.
No,
I don't know.
Oh, Galena is also known as lead.
Yeah.
So when they found lead there,
yeah, that's the technical name for Galena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Galena.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
And so, yeah, that's how the town got its name.
All right, how many of the survivor party actually resorted to cannibalism?
Every last
Over
fucking
or
one.
under 25%?
Over.
Well, the
So-
obsessive one here says over.
So it's debated a lot.
I'm gonna be a dick and say under.
Well, then you're wrong.
Oh.
It's debated a lot, but it's around 50%.
Yeah.
Around about half the people actually had to eat other people
Yeah.
to live. And so we're going to talk about this later too, but I think it's probably more than 50%. It's just that a lot of people kind of didn't want to talk about it after.
A little bit of scrubbing of the
Probably.
facts afterwards.
Yeah. No, I totally didn't eat them at all.
Were you part of that?
Nope.
No.
No, everyone else was doing it. I said, no.
Definitely were not part of it.
Is that a little bit of blood on your lips? Nope. No, I bit my lip earlier.
You smell good.
You smell tasty.
All right. I got another question. In honor of them heading westward, when was the Oregon Trail game released?
Let's say 1985.
85?
I'm gonna go. Came out for PC. I'm gonna go 89.
Ooh, you guys are way off.
Really?
1971
What?
Holy shit.
Really?
is the original Oregon Trail.
Was the
game.
original?
The one we probably played was the Oregon Trail 2.
Is that like the black and white pixel, right? No,
probably
that's the
was.
The
original.
Pixel came out is
All right. What was the most common killer on the Oregon Trail?
Rivers.
For Nate in the Oregon Trail game, it was Rivers. But
It was
the
always the Rivers.
the four options are murder, dysentery, starvation, or cholera.
Colorado.
Hold on. Let me say it again. Murder, dysentery, starvation, or cholera.
Cholera.
Is it because you spelled it wrong?
Did I spell it wrong?
I think it's
That sounds like
Probably.
me.
It's cholera.
I'm an engineer.
I'm gonna go with cholera.
I'm going with murder.
It's cholera.
Ah, damn
Cholera.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Cholera.
Whatever Nate
Like
do
that-
you call
it. Is cholera.
Yeah.
That's
like,
just shitting yourself to death.
yeah. It's a. I believe it's a water. It's a waterborne disease. I believe
Cholera, I
you
think
you
you
catch
do.
it from water.
Dirty
Like for
water.
dirty, poor. Like if you go to third world countries, don't drink the water because they have like cholera. It's like I don't know if it's fecal material in the water, but it's definitely contaminated.
Yeah. Side thing from going to third world countries and not drinking the water. I went to Haiti in college,
I remember that.
and that was a huge thing. Was don't drink the water. Don't drink the water.
Well, that was like right after the earthquake and everything
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
yeah, because they had tent cities and everything.
Yeah.
But when we were there, it was really stupid. I went there. I won a scholarship competition, and we were supposed to meet with people about. We had to come up with a business idea that we could implement in Haiti.
I remember you said
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And so we won. We came up with a farmer's market where you had a physical market where you could sell like fruit and perishable goods. Then you had a computer there basically to sell like jewelry, art, and stuff like that to everybody. You can run it off of one computer. And so we won, and we were supposed to go there to meet with people to do that. Well, we ended up going there, and we went to Tortuga, a little island just north.
Spanish for turtle.
That's where the pirates hung out. And we just basically dug a retention pond.
Really?
Yeah, it was so stupid. I mean, it was like,
My mission. I went to Haiti and did stupid stuff.
well, like they built
I
it up
helped
like we were
people.
gonna be like doing all this extra like stuff for our business idea.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, let's go. And we get there, like, all right, we're digging a hole, and I'm like, oh, okay. But it also, that was when I was in shape. And so I was the rock lifting guy because it would take like 3 Haitians to move a rock or me.
Watch
It's-
Daniel come in. I can do the work of 3
Dude,
Haitians.
He was a freaking
I know.
huge dude
Yeah.
back
Oh,
then,
I
man.
know. I remember. I remember
then-
Nate back
It
then.
was,
was-
sexy.
It was.
I remember Nate because Nate would come over to the house.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
That-
who's
that
this
scary
piece of
place.
meat?
But the worst part.
Hubba, hubba.
So we'd hit a rock and they'd be like, rock, and then I'd go in and I'd pick up the rock and they'd all cheer and everything. It was cool.
Yay!
Big white man.
But when we were
Big
digging,
white man, come save the day.
when we were digging the pond, it was me and one of our student advisors that were working because everyone else just kind of like.
Dude, it had to
wandered.
be hot as all
Dude, it
fuck.
was so hot.
Oh,
And so we were down there helping and everything. We were basically the only ones doing shit. And they handed him a jug, and it was like a cooking oil jug, but I thought it was water because there's liquid in there. And they're like, oh, here. And he took a swig. I was like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we're not supposed to be drinking the water. And he goes, no, it's their homemade rum.
It's their...
And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, here you go, take a sip.
Nate hears rum. Ooh.
I know. Rum holds a special place in my heart. And so I'm like, okay.
Was it like, clear?
It was clear.
Okay.
Oh, dude, it was scary. It was like fucking jet fuel. I was like,
it's probably just like it's like homemade moonshine for them.
Basically. And it was hilarious because they all laughed at me because I was like, they were like, big strong man pussy.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But yeah, that was my story. Because I thought he drank the water, and I was like, dude, you're going to fucking die. And he's like, no,
there's no bacteria in this.
There's no bacteria can live in this.
I have a funnier one. What is another example of people leaving too late in the year for an escapade that resulted in devastating winter conditions that we've discussed on this show?
Is it either A, Napoleon, or B, Hitler?
Is Napoleon.
It's Napoleon.
I know you guys haven't done Hitler. I know you haven't done Operation Barbarossa yet.
No, we only. I mean,
all right, you got one last section here.
All right, last section we're going to talk about today is called "Straight Up Not Having a Good Time," because I think until now it's like they kind of hit a couple bumps in the road.
It's been pretty smooth. It was pretty smooth
been
sailing.
Too bad.
Yeah, it was pretty good up until then.
It hasn't gotten too bad, but there's this chapter where things really go sour, and it sets up for the terrible things that happen afterwards. Right?
Terrible things.
Yeah. It depends on who you are, because we're going to talk about the final iteration of the Donner Party, right? So now we've got 22 wagons, 87 travelers, and these guys are finally, that split happened, right? These are the guys that are off to go on the shitty Hastings Cutoff. And they leave on August 1st. In the first few days, not so bad. Hey,
Hastings guys, he knows what he's talking about.
Hey, this guy, good old Hastings, helping us out here with all this time, saving. They're on their way, and Eddie Breen, one of the guys on their trip, breaks his leg. As soon as they leave Fort Bridger, Edward was riding out on one of the Reed girls. Wait, what a second.
It's a hell of an injury.
Edward was out
his
riding
third leg
with one of the Reed girls when his horse fell and broke his leg. And what's funny about it is, like, the surgeon came and he was like, you know what, we're going to have to cut it off, because I don't know if you know about medical history back then. That's pretty much what they always did. It's going to have to come off.
Your hand hurts. You won't hurt if it's not there.
You guys ever watch, like, the old SNL with, like, Steve Martin with the Barber of York?
I think I've heard about it. I don't know.
He's just like, he's like a middle-aged like doctor, and he's like, we don't know much about modern medicine. He's like, hey, Bill Murray's like got his ankle broken, and he's like, oh, we're gonna hang you upside down for a few days.
All right, good.
Anyways, they're moving along. On August 6th, they find a note left by Hastings, who's ahead of them, right? And it says,
nice
hey,
to leave notes.
Yeah, he says, hey, this road is impassable. This is not good. You need to send someone ahead to come see me so that I can help point you in a different direction, because this ain't going to go well. Right? So the three men actually do separate, and they go ahead to find Hastings. They do find him after a couple days. Hastings starts to go back with James Reed, who was one of the guys who went and found him. And halfway back, Hastings is like, you know what? I need to go back to the first party. Because they're I don't want them to get lost and stuff, and just kind of, anyways, I gotta go. Pretty much is how the conversation went.
Bye.
My route is great.
Because honestly, I think he was afraid of the repercussions that he was about to face, because it was not gonna go well.
Yeah.
He knew this because he had been ahead of him, and the trail they were about to go to was in the fucking desert.
Yeah.
And also at the same time, it was like a semi-wet desert, and the wagon wheels were getting caught in it, and it was a terrible time. So he knew that they were going to go through this, and he's like, I can't be around you guys. I need to get going. So for some reason, like, he just separates from James Reed at that point, and like, I don't know.
I don't think there's anything they can do. I think it's like Okay.
For all of James Reed being an asshole in all this story, he certainly isn't an asshole in a part where he should be an asshole.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think they knew what was coming yet either. I think it'd been going good, and
right. So I think the whole thing with the Hastings cutoff, I think he knew a little bit like this. So what it was there was this stretch of desert where he was like, all right, it's gonna suck, but if you sprint it for 2 days and you hustle and you get through it, you can survive.
Yeah,
right?
Because according to him, I read that he was telling people it was only 40 miles, but
correct. No, that's true.
5 miles.
He's like, it's 40 miles. You sprint it for 2 days.
It'll
You
be
get
fine.
through it. It's over.
Yeah.
it'll suck a little bit.
The truth was, it was 83 miles of no grass and no water anywhere. And it was muddy, too.
the Great Salt Desert.
Yeah. Straight up just not having a good time. So they started going through this. It takes them 18 days to go 36
Dude,
miles.
That's
fucking-
2 miles a day.
Yeah. Terrible. And they're in the desert, too,
Yeah.
at the same time. Right?
It's hot. It's arid. There's no water. There's no grass for your cattle.
In the meantime, one of the guys in their party dies from TB, so they lose another one. Later, in August 28th, they find a shredded message from Hastings that indicated they would need to push hard the next 2 days and 2 nights, and you'll get across the desert and find fresh water. But it was actually far worse than that, right? They still had a long ways to go. By the 3rd day in the desert, they actually had to separate their group a little bit. So Reed was forced to go ahead with the animals to go get them water, or like all the animals were going to die. They were in really rough shape at that point. So he left all the other people stranded in the desert with no animals. So just to like straight up just leave them there so he could save the animals that they did have. But like they did find water, but there was such chaos and confusion, and like they lost animals in the process of doing that overall they lost a whole week getting the animals together, sending them out there, getting them back. Like it just ended up not working out well. So in the end of it, when they did cross the desert, they were severely hemorrhaged. In animals, they lost 36 animals. They lost 4 wagons in the process in 11 days. So the desert specifically, that segment, just crushed this group.
Yeah.
The Hastings cutoff is what killed them. Maybe they would.
I think they would have been
I
fine.
think they would have been fine if they
stuck to
had gone the
regular
other
path.
way. They
I mean,
probably
wouldn't
would have been
separated. They wouldn't have been separated from their huge caravan.
Correct.
I mean, obviously they probably would have been fine.
But Big Matt needs a fucked up story to talk about.
Yes.
Hell
They
yeah.
did it for Big Matt
Yeah,
specifically.
they had enough forethought to realize some
dude,
big
should
guy
we
in the
follow
future
him?
is gonna really like this story.
And then some weird guy in the back's like, "Do it for Big Matt." And they're like, "Who the fuck's that? Don't worry about it."
So they get across the desert and they're getting closer to more of the mountain type areas. And September 10th is now where we're at. And the first snowstorm comes in September.
Bum bum bum.
But you're in the Utah. They're at basically the border of would probably be what, Utah into Nevada at this point, or they might even be in Nevada. That's high. That's high desert. That's high up.
Winter comes early.
Yeah, it's in high elevations. You're looking at snowstorms in September.
So they send out 2 guys. Oh, sorry. They send out 2 guys. They rode ahead to try and set up provisions for them in California, kind of get things prepared for the group for when they did end up getting across, because they were going to get across fine. They weren't going to have to eat people or anything.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
The thought was, all right, we send 2, like we talked about with the mountain men. If you're just 2 guys on horses, you can haul. There's nothing to hold you back. Go over there. They were going to go to Sutter's Fort. Okay. And so Sutter's Fort was that was their destination spot. It's in the valley. I believe it's very close to Sacramento, which is now the capital of California.
Northern California.
Yeah, it's like North Central or something like that. Yeah. And they said, all right, you guys haul ass across, get across the pass, go secure provisions. We'll meet you somewhere along the trail. And so that way they could have a stopping point where they could stock up, get more food.
Yep.
So that was the idea.
So they get past the Hastings Cutoff too as part of this, and September 26th they go back on the original California Trail, and after spending 68 days in total on the Hastings Cutoff,
which is ridiculous because they was supposed to cut off what 200 miles. Even if you do 10 miles a day, it's 20 days.
Yeah, it didn't work out great.
That's
right?
just it's yeah. The Hastings Cutoff is what makes the story.
Which it's funny if you look at. I looked at a map of the Hastings Cutoff versus like the standard trail, and it didn't look like it was that much shorter. Like it was still, it's a little shorter, but it's not significantly.
Yeah, it just that's what did it. That was the ultimate flaw.
Right. So at this point, things are getting heated. People are getting angry. Right. On October 5th, James Reed ends up killing one of the wagon drivers.
What? The guy I talked about decided to kill somebody.
People describe it essentially as like wagon riding road rage. Basically, their wagons were getting tangled up, and he was getting frustrated with them. He just came up and, like, fucking stabbed him. Yeah.
Well, and I believe his wife also got hit with a riding crop or something to that effect too, and that enraged him. And yeah, he just lost it.
There's a lot of like conflicting testimony as to what happened for sure. What we do know is that a guy got stabbed, got his lung punctured, and he died like pretty quickly.
By Reed.
Classic.
By Reed, yes.
So they didn't know what to do with James. But so they talked about hanging him. Some of them proposed that. What they ended up doing was just putting him on a horse and sending him like as he was like what do you call it?
Like outcast.
Banished.
Banished.
Yeah, he's banished. He's out. Yeah, outcast.
Yeah. Which actually was the best thing for James Reed.
Correct.
Because he just goes across and ends up being fine.
He figures. Well, and he does. He does the same thing
that
Stanton and McCutcheon do. He just goes. He's like, all right, fine. I'm gonna go across and get supplies then.
Fuck you guys. I'm going.
Pretty much.
And it's not the last time we talk about James Reed in the story too, which is kind of funny. He ends up helping in a funny way. Redemption.
That's what it is.
Redemption.
So this is gonna bring us to probably like one of the sadder. So that brings us to our fine Dutch fellow named Hardcoop. He was one of Louis Kesselberg's drivers.
You're smiling, you sick fuck.
So
it's not a happy story for Hardcoop.
Remember Kesselberg? I brought him up a while back. He's this hot-headed German guy. Okay, Hardcoop is one of the drivers, and Kesselberg has lost a wagon in the desert, and all of a sudden somebody's like, hey, where the heck's your and the guy's
your
like
driver,
your
right?
driver. He's like he's in his 60s. He's old.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know. And so a rider went out, found him 5 miles back in the trail, and said that Kesselberg had forced him from the wagon. And so like the guy's like he's like 60, he's in his 60s. Like that's old. I mean,
he's like, you're gonna die.
Yeah, like he's having to walk. And so
Because Reed lost a wagon, right? And he's like, I ain't got no room.
Yeah, it's like I got no more room, right? You're just gonna have to walk like my wife and my children.
Which can I stop there? Why
is he not walking?
Yeah, so he's like, my kids and my wife are walking, and I'm gonna drive the wagon. What's going on there?
Well,
is that how things went?
Maybe it was like Saudi Arabia. Women couldn't drive a wagon or something. I don't know.
Like, I can't imagine being like,
yeah, like
you
it's
fucking walk while I'm driving my thing, okay? You think it's easy sitting on my butt up here, okay?
Yeah.
Get your little ass out there and walk it.
Well, and I don't understand, like, if I was
you need to lose some weight anyways, fatty.
If I was a kid, you just stick them in the back and sit anywhere on the wagon.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, don't get hurt so maggots end up in your skin.
So basically, they get him up there and they said, hey, you got to let this guy ride with you, right? Like, he's 60s. He can't walk.
Yeah, don't be fucked up.
Especially 60 back then.
Well, and it's like, I don't know. Yeah, like you said, I don't know why the hell he didn't get out of there. Like, he should have let his wife drive, something like that. Like, the woman could drive. And so the next day, Hardcoop gets kicked out again. And he couldn't keep up.
Maybe he was just a dick.
Well,
Is he a backseat driver?
I don't know.
Backseat wagoner?
So here is kind of where we start to see this. Remember we talked about at the beginning that a wagon train was supposed to be together. Everybody was supposed to help each other out.
It's like a mosh pit, right? Someone's falling, you pick them up.
Yeah. So this is where we start to see that society of helping each other break down. So the next day, Kesselberg kicks Hardcoop out of the wagon, and he can't keep up. The last we see of him, he is found sitting under a clump of sagebrush, shoeless. No shoes. His feet are black and so swollen that the skin was split open on his feet.
Oof.
And that's where he was left.
And he died.
Yeah, that's where we start to see this all think of yourself. You don't start to think of others anymore.
It's the beginning of a fracture of like morality.
Correct.
I would say.
Correct.
Human
you are
decency
only
is going out of the window.
You only care about one person.
Survival.
You and your family.
Right. When things are that hard, I get it.
Yeah.
But poor old guy.
Man.
Yep.
Also,
sorry, dude.
times are a lot tougher then.
It is.
It's literal
like, dude,
survival.
They're like, dude, you're 60 years old. You basically are like 120 nowadays.
You lived a full life.
Yeah. That's a way full
Get
life.
the fuck off my wagon. Listen to your grandpa.
Yeah.
We'll tell your story. Get the fuck off.
Yeah.
We'll tell you a story. That's funny.
Like, I just couldn't imagine trying to keep up. Like, your feet are literally splitting open.
Yeah.
Like, imagine trying to walk in the desert without shoes.
No, what I think about it is how awkward that would be
for
a while. Because like he'd be trying to keep up, and like everyone knows it's not gonna work.
It's just like, yeah.
And you're just like
Everyone's
walking,
kind of like looking into like
you're like looking back at him
Should
every
we
once in a
help him?
while,
Stop looking at him.
like
Yeah.
trying to be sheepish about it, and then he's just like,
I'm really tired. Did you hear something? I didn't hear anything.
yeah, like.
hey, Dad, should we help
In the area.
All right, so in the next week, some of the Native Americans in the area. I'm going to try to say the name. It's Paiute.
Yep.
Okay.
That sounds
Matt
right to
says,
me.
yep.
I mean,
all I
that's phonetically, that's how I would pronounce it.
But these guys started stealing and slaughtering some of the oxen and cows in the party, forcing two families to just leave their wagons.
See,
so, not good.
I don't feel bad for those guys, though. It's like how shitty Native Americans were treated back then. Yeah, let them steal.
I mean, they probably didn't see very many white people, though.
Yeah.
At that time. So they get to the Sierra Nevada range in late October, and the party.
The worst
it's kind of
fucking
important
time to be there.
Yeah, so it's very important.
It snows here in late October.
Yeah. And I say Halloween over the past couple years.
It's
has
been
had snow.
cold, man.
So imagine it like this: you're trying to travel across the whole U.S. You get to the hardest point where you want to make sure that you go through it when it's not the winter,
And it's the winter.
and the winter is like right around the corner, or you're in the winter, right?
Yeah. It's starting to get chilly.
And you say, you know what, guys, we need to take a break. We're gonna sit here for a couple days and rest our animals.
Call an audible here. We're just gonna sit and chill and make campfire.
And that's exactly what they did.
Yep.
Right, and it was a terrible decision. And what happens is, well, I guess I gotta slow down.
At this point,
To an extent, is it a horrible decision?
yes.
I mean,
yeah.
do you think
Yes.
I mean, yes.
Yes.
Horrible things happen.
Looking at the way the storms rolled in.
It was like the day of.
Yeah. If they had, I mean, even if they had done 6 days instead of a week, or 5 days. I don't know if it was a week, like 7 days. I don't know. Like, even if they did it a day shorter of what they did, they probably would have been. Yeah, they would have been fine.
Yeah. The problem is they hit a huge storm
Like right
as they go across the mountains.
Yep.
Yeah. Gotta love that.
So, along this way, one of the guys gets shot in the back of the head by his friend. And it wasn't like he was mad at him or anything. He was just reloading the gun and like accidentally blew off his friend's head.
Whoops.
And like it was,
That's like some Three Stooges shit.
and the guy didn't even die right away.
Nope.
He lived for like a half an hour.
Oh, that's horrible.
It was like, oh, I'm so sorry.
well,
It's
think
all right,
about,
man.
like,
I
with-
forgive you.
Like those brain wounds, you can live for a little bit.
Actually,
it's
it was
not
probably
immediate
more like
death.
This. It was probably like, dude, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
The nerve.
But so they're going through now, and Stanton, the guy who rode ahead, comes back to the party with 7 mules loaded with supplies,
Yeah, so
which is good.
so
That's a good thing.
Yeah, Stanton. Before that, Reed actually ran into Stanton, and so Stanton's now got 2 Native American guides. Or whatever you might say. They're from the Miwok tribe.
Helpers.
Yeah, and so Reed then keeps going on to Fort Sutter, and Stanton's all right. I'm going back now, and I'm gonna go get them some
Imagine
supplies.
being Stanton, like, hey, what's going on? Yeah, I stabbed a dude. They're making me leave. I'm just
Oh,
going
yeah.
ahead. And he's probably like,
He probably didn't even say. I said, something happened. I had to leave. I don't know.
I don't know. People were kind of being dicks.
Don't
And
worry
he's
about
like,
it.
I
"All
just
right, whatever."
left. Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and get some stuff. And they're like, all right, cool. And then they get back there, like, dude, fucking Reed stabbed a guy. And they're like, oh,
I saw him.
shit.
So at this point, this is kind of a foreshadow for what's to come next. But George Donner actually injures his hand while repairing a wagon axle, and his brother was there and was like, "Oh, it's just a scratch."
Cuts it with a chisel.
What's the worst that could happen? The truth is that this is the thing that he would die from.
Remember what I said? Like any little cut,
Nick,
Any
scratch,
nick.
anything.
back in the day, it before antibiotics.
Infections.
Yeah.
And
And at the same time, and we'll get into it too, when you're malnourished or stressed or things of that nature, your body is much more susceptible.
Yeah, I think it's a good microcosm for what's to come next, right? Because I think poor decisions have been made. They've been hemorrhaged and have been wounded as a group at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And what's about to come is some of the darkest story in all of history. We are going to do a part 2 with this, so we're gonna break from here. But what's to come next is this team gets lost in the mountains and gets stranded and cannot move and has to resort to eating human flesh.
Gets hungry.
And we're going to go through all of that and the rescue of that team and the legacy of this story in the next episode. But that's where we're going to leave today. And
Yeah. Like and follow us on all the Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Please subscribe on any of the platforms that you were listening on.
Who wants a manwich, right? He brought us a present, if you can see the video.
Big Matt did bring us a manwich.
Who wants a manwich?
Just add the meat.
Stay hungry out there, listeners.
Stay hungry.